There you go.
All right. Hey, everyone. It's good to be here with you. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way. Today we are going to be starting with quote 419. And I think I was here a couple weeks ago, and I think we ended with quote 419, but we went through it really quickly. And I said that we would start with it today. So that's what we're doing. We're starting right where we left off. I'm going to read quote 419 from the 7 Steps to Awakening. Since that omnipresent, infinite consciousness alone is present at all times, diversity is absurd and impossible. The reason, I don't know if you notice a strange look on my face, but I feel like this last part, diversity is absurd and impossible, not those words, but this clarity whispers in the back of my mind all of the time now. And as a result, it kind of holds me so that I don't slip back into believing in separation. I feel like it just kind of holds me. That's all I have to say about that. So let me read the quote again. Since that omnipresent, infinite consciousness alone is present at all times, diversity is absurd and impossible. That's the same realization as the one I shared with y'all a few weeks ago about there is no creation. You could argue that creation is absurd and impossible. And the reason creation is absurd and impossible is because it would require two. It would require at least a creator and a creation, right? And so once non-dual realization really begins to dawn, it's seen that there cannot be creation. There cannot be diversity. There can only be the one. And that's all that makes sense. Anything else doesn't really make sense anymore. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at 419 in Out of the Stillness. It is important to separate what is real from what is unreal. It is important not to be deluded. Yeah, typo. I remember saying that last time. It is important not to be deluded. The deluded suffer. The one that is not deluded is at peace, because truth is unaffected by illusory cause and effect. I'm going to go ahead and stop. This first paragraph has enough in it. I think we can just stop here and look at it. So it's important to separate what is real from what is unreal. You know, last week I taught a 4 Principles of God retreat. And I would say that's the primary purpose of the 4 Principles of God retreat, or the 4 Principles of God teaching, is to help spiritual students separate what is real from what is unreal. You know, we talked about the 4th principle of God, which is all manifestation. For those of you who don't know the 4 principles, all manifestation is what I refer to as the 4th principle of God. And what happens in manifestation is that we try to determine the difference between the real and the unreal in manifestation. You know, for example, we might say, well, crime is real, you know, that happens, but ghosts and aliens are not real. Right? And what's important about the teaching about the 4 principles of God is that hopefully, you can ask those who were there, hopefully what you come to see is all of manifestation is ultimately unreal. That none of that is true. And the reason this is important to the spiritual student is what the spiritual student is ultimately after is truth. And so if you're ultimately after truth, then one of the things you need to be able to do is discern between what is real and what is unreal. If you cannot discern between what is real and what is unreal, you can stay caught up in the unreal as if it is real easily for the rest of your life, right? And so this is saying it is important to separate what is real from what is unreal. It is important not to be deluded, right? This is important. Why? Well, it says the deluded suffer. You know, yesterday, anybody who knows me well knows that I love playing with money. You know, like when I was the president minister, I didn't mind the money part of the job. Some people do, but I didn't mind the money part of the job. I like playing with money. I'm the treasurer of our condos in La Vida because I like playing with money. And I watch the stock market because I like playing with money. But what was funny yesterday was, you know, well, the news called it the worst day since March 2023. That's what people call, and people who are interested in the stock market would call a bad day. Do you want to know how I saw it? I mean, I saw what I called the panic and the sell-off. I saw, you know, last night when I logged in, I saw my investments being worth less than they were the day before. But here's how truth sees. This is just temporary. It's absolutely nothing to get upset about. And in fact, just to prove it, if we look at the stock market today, right now, the Dow Jones is up 78 points. NASDAQ is up 141. S&P is up 31. It's probably going to break a record today. Was yesterday really worth being upset about? And yet, if you know, I saw the face, I showed my mom this one face. You know, I saw that they showed this one guy's face. I don't even think I can make his expression. You could tell the poor guy was sick. He was sick about what was happening. You know, and he may have been losing millions, right? But he lost millions yesterday. They're going to be back today or by the end of the week, you know? So that's what this is saying. It's important to know the difference between what's real and what's unreal. I like to play with money, but the reason I can play with money is because I understand that money is unreal. I understand that money comes, money goes, money is a manifestation. It's not what's real. If we don't know the difference between what's real and unreal, we suffer. We suffer over money. We suffer over health. We suffer over whatever the problem of the day is in our individual life. You know, one game I used to play when I was teaching myself to see that things come and go and ultimately have no real effect is I used to try and remember, what problem was I worried about 10 years ago today? How many of y'all can remember that? I mean, 10 years ago today, I assure you there was something up, right? Can you remember? Right? No, of course not. Of course not. So you see, all of this stuff comes, all of this stuff goes, but it's not reality. It's not truth. And if we're confused about what is reality, or even another way to word that, if we're confused about what is important, we suffer, right? So let me go back and read this again so far. It is important to separate what is real from what is unreal. It is important to not be deluded. The deluded suffer. The one that is not deluded is at peace, because truth is unaffected by illusory cause and effect. Truth is unaffected by illusory cause and effect. This morning when I was walking my dog, I was listening to last night's 500 Days group here in the sanctuary. They were discussing the 500 Days with NTI. And one of the points they made when they were discussing it was that they realized that when any of us, I'm going to use the word I now, when I seem to be really upset at something and it feels like I've lost my peace, the truth is peace is allowing the upset, but my attention has left the peace that is allowing the upset and gone fully to the upset. And because my attention has gone fully to the upset, I think I've lost my peace. But if I could allow the upset to be here, but pay attention to the awareness or to the peace that allows the upset, what I would see is that peace cannot be lost, right? Peace is the unaffected nature. I remember when I was meditating one day many years ago, I was at a friend's house and I was meditating. I think it was stillness I was trying to get to, because the mind, you guys know the mind, right? Yeah, and so I'm meditating, I'm trying to get to stillness. And I wasn't being successful. But as I'm sitting there trying to get to stillness away from this mind, all of a sudden it hit me like a ton of bricks. I am stillness. I don't have to get to stillness. I am stillness. I am the stillness that's allowing this mind to chatter, 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 chatter. Right? So when we know the truth of what we are, when we are focused on the truth of what we are, we're able to watch the stock market go up and down. We're able to watch, the health issues come and go. We're able to watch the problem of the day come and go. It doesn't mean that I don't still have to deal with it. As you guys know, I'm selling a house right now, and there's stuff you have to do when you're selling a house, and I'm doing it. But it means that I don't have to be upset by the little apparent glitches that come in the process of the real estate deal. They come, they go, this deal will close or it won't. Eventually the house will be sold. They all sell, right? And so you just watch what's going on. You just be with what's going on. You play your role in what's going on, but your attention is with the peace. Your attention is with the unaffected nature. But we can't do that if we think what's out there is what's real. Right? If we think what's out there is what's real, even if it goes to our thoughts, our emotions, or our perceptions, if we think any of those are real, that's where our attention is going to go. And those things, they go crazy. And so as they go crazy, we're going to go crazy. One way I've come to think of attention is attention is like the tongue of awareness. Your tongue tastes the food you put in your mouth, right? Attention tastes whatever content it lands on. It tastes those thoughts. It tastes those emotions. It tastes those perceptions. So it's like you're having the experience of the thoughts, the emotions, or the perception. You're experiencing it. But guess what happens with that tongue? If you put that tongue on the unaffected nature and leave it there. If you put that tongue on peace and leave it there, it tastes that. Right? It tastes that. And so then all this other stuff can come and go. And because your attention is with the unaffected nature, you're unaffected by what appears to come and go. Again, in order to do that, we have to know what's real, because we want to keep, we naturally, I'm going to say subconsciously, I don't think this is a conscious decision. We naturally want to keep our intention with what's real, what's important. right? You naturally want to pay attention to what's important. So this is why we have to discern between what is real and what isn't real, what is important and what isn't important, so that our attention will naturally go to the truth instead of staying caught up in the coming and going, the illusion, the untruth. So it is important to separate what is real from what is unreal. It is important not to be deluded. The deluded suffer. The one that is not deluded is at peace. Because truth is unaffected by illusory cause and effect. What is present always, unaffected by anything that can be seen? Is there something constant and changeless here now? And that was an inquiry that arose from wisdom, because you see an answer from me, which was yes, which means that I went and checked. Is there something unaffected that is here right now, that is always here? And the answer is yes. And this would have been historically, if you want a little bit of historical trivia, some of you know that game I played called What is Constant, where I'll just explain the game for those who don't know it. The way the game works is whenever I notice a change, I would check to see what's the same now with this change that was here before the change. So for example, if I'm hungry, what is the same right now while I'm hungry that when I wasn't hungry, it was here, it was the same? Or if I'm cold, what's the same now that I'm cold that wasn't here before I was cold, or that was here before I was cold? Or if I'm hot, what's the same now that I'm hot that was also the same when I was cold? You know, I just kept playing this game. This particular journal entry came around the time that I discovered the game, right? So this is around the time that I began to play that game. What is present always, unaffected by anything that can be seen? Is there something constant and changeless here now? And I think for those of you who are in the sanctuary, Shauna put a link to the What is Constant game in the chat. Thank you, Shauna. So yes, there is something here now that's constant, that's always here. And again, I was playing that game at that time, so I was beginning to really tune into that. So then the next question that comes is, what is that? This is a question from inner wisdom. What is that? What is that is constant? And my answer was, I cannot separate it from what I am, so I will call it I. Now, I'll tell you what I like about that answer. I think too often we fall back on intellectual spirituality. So for example, many people call it awareness. So we say, what is that? It's awareness. We don't even have to look to spit that answer out. We don't have to stop and feel and look to spit that answer out, because we've heard it over and over again, right? What's happening here, and the reason I like this answer, is because what happened was, you can tell that I stopped and checked. I stopped and looked. It says, what is that? You know, what is that thing that is constant and changeless and here now? So I stopped and I looked. And the answer that I gave was not the traditional awareness. It was, I can't separate it from what I am, so I'm going to call it I. Right? Can I be seen? Is the next question from inner wisdom. And I said, no. I am aware of it, but it cannot be seen. And what does that mean? Like right now, I'm actually a little thirsty. I'm a little dry. I'll probably shut up in a second and take a drink. But I can see that thirst, you know, with my inner eye. Like there's an I or a me that is kind of behind the thirst, that can look forward and see it. right? Just like I can look forward and see the computer in front of me. It's like something that's behind that can look forward. the thirst goes all the way back into the back of my mouth, and that somehow I'm behind looking at even that. Right? I can also see it from the front. I just shifted to see if I could. Naturally, I was looking at it from the back, but then I shifted. Now I'm actually looking at it from the front. It starts at the lips and moves back from there. I can see it from the side. I can see it from the other side. I can shift around and see it from different directions. And I can be aware of it from within the thirst. I can be aware of it from within the thirst. So, can I be seen? Can I see I? Like I can see the thirst? Hold on 1 second. We'll take care of the thirst and then we'll answer that question. Can I get behind I? No. Can I get in front of I? No. I can't get in front of I and look back at I. What about within I? Depends on how you define the word within. If merged with it means within, then yes, right? But not in the same way I could get within the thirst, and yet I was still aware of what was outside of the thirst. There is no within and outside of this, of I. It's everything. I mean, it's everywhere. So that's why I said, no, I'm aware of it, but it can't be seen. I can't see it as an object, like I could see the thirst as an object. It's just here. It's just now. I'm aware of it, but I can't see it. Does it ever change? Is the next question that wisdom likes. And that wisdom likes, the wisdom asks. Does it ever change? So let's look. I can see the thirst returning, so that's changing. I can hear the wind blowing, and it's changing. It has different velocity or different, sometimes it's real high wind, sometimes real low wind. The dog just left the room, that changed. The car just went by, that changed. I can't find any change in I, though. All right, so does it ever change? No, it remains the same regardless of the changes mind perceives and experiences. And that's exactly what I just, the wind was changing, the dog's back. Like all these things are changing. But no matter what the mind is perceiving, no matter what seems to be changing, the I is the same. Is it a part of mind? Oh, that's a good question. Is it a part of mind? Well, I remember, a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we looked at what is mind. And when we were looking at what is mind, what we found, or at least what I found, and I shared with you, was the only thing I could find that appeared to be mind was attention going to thought. Attention going to thought. So is this changeless awareness a part of it, an aspect of it? No. How do I know? Because attention goes to thought within this changeless nature. Like if this changeless nature was the sea is not a part of the fish, right? The fish is within the sea. Well, mind is like the fish. Mind is within this I. So it can't be a part of mind. Mind is an appearance within I. So the answer, is it a part of mind? No. Mind seems to be within it, but I am before mind. And then the next question, what is it? Like, how would I describe this? What is it? Well, it's what I am. That's why I'm calling it I. It's the presence that I am. It's inseparable from me. I can't get outside of it. I can't put it outside of me. It's what I am. The answer I gave here is, it is formless self, right? What I am is self, right? We call it myself. It is myself. Does it have a beginning? You know, we could say, did it start at birth? I said, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. From my current experience, without taking anything I've ever been told, without taking anything that I've ever learned, the only thing I can actually say for sure is that it's now, that it's here. And in fact, for as long as I have been inquiring into it, and, you know, years, we could say it's been, you know, well, since this was done in 2012, right? So since this, it's been 13 years since this, what we're reading. It's always been here and now. So in that way, you could say there is no past. And if there is no past, there is no beginning, right? It's just always here now. And it's always been here now, every time I've looked. But what I answered on that day was that I don't know. I mean, you know, how do you answer a question like that? Does it have a beginning? I don't know. I just know it's here now. Now I'll notice the next question, who doesn't know? So I'm looking, who says, I don't know? Well, the mind. I mean, I don't find the constant changeless nature saying, I don't know. Do you? So I answered, intellectual mind does not know and cannot make that determination. It doesn't know. The next thing, inner wisdom says, what is obviously unreal because it cannot verify reality. What is obviously unreal because it cannot verify reality. And the answer that I gave to that was intellectual mind, because I could see right then, just in the question being asked, that mind will never know truth. It just doesn't have the capability of actually knowing truth. Only truth can know truth. And that alone means that mind is not real. If mind was real, then it could know truth. Right? Truth can know truth. I can know I, but mind doesn't know. Therefore, mind must be unreal. What is obviously unreal because it cannot verify reality, intellectual mind. Next question, does intellectual mind have a beginning? The answer came very quickly, yes. Isn't that funny? I couldn't answer the question when it came to this awareness, this I couldn't say whether it had a beginning or not, but mind, I knew it had a beginning. In fact, we could even argue that it has many, many beginnings. right? Every time attention goes to thought, it's the beginning of mind, right? It's always beginning, always coming and going, many, many beginnings. But I knew instantly that it had a beginning. But then it says, what knows this? It actually didn't come from mind. I looked, and my knowing that mind has a beginning didn't come from mind. I said, I don't know what knows this. That seems to be an intuitive knowing that knows this. Something knows mind has a beginning. And it says this intuitive knowing will be called grandfather, just a nickname. We're going to talk about it, so we have to give it a name. We're going to call it grandfather. This intuitive knowing will be called grandfather because it knows of mind's beginning. Inquiry will attempt to determine what grandfather knowing is by investigating in its direction. That's inner wisdom telling me, here's what we're going to do next. So that's what we're going to do next. And apparently we're going to do it with the next quote, but let's read the next quote. Quote number 420. The reality is beginningless and endless, and it is not even reflected in anything. That is the reality. The reality, well, you know, the funny thing is, it says the reality is beginningless and endless. And it's really a funny thing because mind obviously can't perceive anything as not having a beginning, right? But if you look at mind, thinking about, does this I have a beginning? Isn't mind looking for a past? Isn't that what, like, doesn't it naturally like turn towards a past to see? And if it was to think about an end, wouldn't it kind of turn its attention towards a future? Can you feel that? Now, look at awareness. Look at I. I'm going to use this word just to so you know what answer I want you to give. When is I? Isn't it now? Is there any past in it? I mean, or is it just now? Is there any future in it? Or is it just now? And if it's just now, can you honestly say it had a beginning or an ending? That's when you have to go to mind and you have to start searching time, right? But you can't do that with I because it's just now. Only mind can look for a beginning and an end. Only thinking can do that. It can't find it, but it can look for it. It can think about it. It can have beliefs about it. But the true I, awareness, can't even look in those directions because those directions don't exist in reality. It can only be now. It can only be aware of now. So the reality is beginningless and endless, and it is not even reflected in anything. That is the reality. So let's look at 420. We know that inner wisdom is going to take us to investigate grandfather knowing, which is I. It's this I that seems to know things that mind doesn't know. Can grandfather knowing be separated from self? Well, grandfather knowing, remember, the way that it came up in this inquiry was when the question was asked, does mine have a beginning? There's this quick yes. Yes, mine has a beginning. What knows that? What knows that? Can what knows that mind has a beginning be separated from I? Or is it I? It's I. Somehow I know mind has a beginning. So can grandfather knowing be separated from self? No. It's not like somebody else told me that. I knew instantly that mind had a beginning, right? I didn't even have to think about it. I just knew mind has a beginning. Can grandfather knowing be affected? I want to go ahead and read what I wrote that day. No. And this answer came with great certainty. See, grandfather knowing knows it can't be affected. It knows it can't be affected. I mean, look at it. It doesn't speak words. It doesn't make a long speech about the fact that it can't be affected. But if you just feel into it, I suppose the way that's arising in my mind now is, how could the formless be affected by form? And you can feel that, right? Can grandfather knowing be affected? No. And this answer came with great certainty. Now, inner wisdom says, forget everything read in books or taught by teachers, all right? So we're not looking at what we've learned anywhere. And look at direct experience now. Can anything be separated from the knowing that is called grandfather? And we played this in the retreat last week. We'll play it again here. Can anything be separated from the knowing that is grandfather? Maybe we'll play it in a little different way this time. Just look at anything real quick. Don't think about it. Just look at it. Like I happen to look at what we would call the window frame, the frame around the window. I can tell you about that with the mind. I can tell you that it's a rectangle shape. I can tell you that it's black. I can tell you that it's about 2.5 inches thick. But mind knew it. Or not mind, sorry. Knowing knew it without any of that. Just in looking at it, it knew it. Try looking at something else and look at how quickly you know it before mind can even kick in and tell you what it is or say anything about it. Try something else. The mind can step in and say, that's a dog. The sun's shining on the dog. Oh, I wonder if the dog's getting hot. You know? But in an instant, knowing just knows whatever the senses are looking at, whatever we're feeling, whatever we're hearing. Just listen for something. You know, like I can say that's the wind, but I know that without that label. You could say, I know the experience of hearing the sound without without labeling it as the wind. Without any thought whatsoever, it knows whatever appears. It knows it naturally. Now, here's the question, because that was just a lead up to the way we're going to answer the question. So here's the exact question. Can anything be separated from the knowing? Now, mind would say the dog over there is separate from me. I understand that. But when the knowing knows that without the mind, Isn't there like a direct knowing? The mind is an intermediary that interprets what is known. Don't get me wrong, it's there. But if you take mind out of it, even if mind is talking, just take mind out of it and pay attention to what you are looking at, what you are hearing, what you are feeling. It doesn't matter. Isn't there a direct knowing? Have you ever listened to a sound and noticed that you can even feel the sound in the nervous system of the body? The mind would tell you the sound is out there, over there, but is that true? If you can feel the sound in the body's nervous system? Tina, I think I see a little hand there. You're so excited that I saw your hand, it looks like.
Yeah, can I share something? It's a story, but it's so fun. It has to do with what you just said. Okay, so if you ever get a chance to be on a ranch with horses and they're in a herd or be anywhere around a herd of horses and it's foggy in the morning, I used to go on the ranch. It was I could cry. It was one of my favorite moments. And I'd go to feed. I'd walk in early. They weren't in there. They were out in the field. And the fog would cover. You couldn't see a thing. It was so still. But the minute you could feel the ground start shaking before you could see the horses come through the fog, you could feel the pound. They would vibrate all the way through you. And then all of a sudden they'd break through. But it wasn't the sound that you realized they were coming. It was the vibration of what was going on, that you could feel them before you could hear them or before you could see them.
Yeah.
I guess that's what made me think of that.
Yeah, no, I can see exactly why you thought of that. But what we're looking at, now I know the mind. I know the mind says, yes, those horses are separate from me. But what we're looking at is that true? And again, me here is not the body. Me here is the knowing. Can anything known actually be separated from the knowing? Just feel into it, look into it. Forget everything read in books or taught by teachers and look at direct experience now. Can anything be separated from the knowing that we're currently calling grandfather? That's unimportant, just the knowing itself. I can't find anything separate from the knowing. There is knowledge that seems to be present and not a part of mind's perceivable world. That knowledge includes knowing existence and knowing non-affected. This knowing sees mind as an object, a temporary object, and it is not concerned about mind at all. It has a feeling of realness. When you look at what we're calling I right now or knowing right now, does that feel real to you? Yeah, it has a feeling of realness. And it seems to know the difference between what is real and what is false. Like it knows it's real. And it knows mind is just a temporary appearance. It knows it's real and it knows mind is just blah, 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 right? Is it, this knowing, separate from I? Aren't we just tuning into it as I? Aren't I the one that's knowing? I answered, I cannot say that it is. I cannot say that it is separate. Is I apart from it? Can you separate knowing and I? Just listen to a sound. Look at a thing. Tune into the knowing. Can you separate I from that knowing? I can't. No, it feels like self-knowledge, or I could call it self-knowing. I said it also feels like the peace of God. When you look at just the knowing, does it feel like peace to you? It feels honest to say grandfather knowing and I are one and inseparable. So what it had said at the bottom of 420, it said, let's see, what was that? 421. Sorry, 419 said, this intuitive knowing will be called grandfather because it knows of mind's beginning. Inquiry will attempt to determine what grandfather knowing is by investigating in its direction. By investigating its direction, what we found is I am grandfather knowing. Grandfather knowing is I. It's not beyond I. It's not something I am not aware of. It's not something I hope to wake up to someday. It's I. I'll just pause there because I think the next one that I have highlighted completely changes topics. And actually, we only have 10 minutes. We probably don't even want to start the next one. So why don't you guys share based on this inquiry that we did today? I'd love to hear from you. Okay, Ruby.
This is an animal story that kind of from Tina's horse story. Mine is from my black cat story. Well, what comes up for me whenever I'm coming home, George says the cat runs to the kitchen. And that's kind of near the garage. Now, he says the cat starts that before there's sound of the garage opening. He's saying the garage has not opened yet, but the cat comes in the kitchen. Before, he says it's just bizarre. So what comes up for me is that whatever is comes before sound, it comes before vibration, because it is now. And if you're looking for it, you're looking for it before now. Now, that's just what's coming up for me, but I'm not so sure about that, but I am kind of sure about it. I don't know.
Well, Ruby, you just gave me an idea for a game that we could play for a week if you guys want to play a game.
Yeah.
course, in order to play this game, we're really going to have to remember the game and pay attention for it. Okay, because life is going to try to speed up past the game, beyond the game. But what if we just pay attention for things we knew before the mind knew? Like, is there an I here that knows before mind knows? I can't remember exactly what Dr. David Hawkins says. It's something like, and this is not an exact quote, but it's something like, we know everything first, everything. And like 1/20th of a second later, mind knows it. So, first of all, what is the I that would know before mind? Wouldn't that be this knowing we're talking about? But can we catch that at all? Can we catch it all that somehow I knew and then mind started talking? I'll tell you the first time I remember catching it, and maybe you can even look and maybe this will give you a hint. I don't remember the specifics, but I knew I was going to go to the refrigerator and grab something, right? I knew that I was heading in that direction, the refrigerator to grab something. And then I heard mine say, I'm going to go to the refrigerator and, get an ice cream. I went, oh my God. I already knew that. And then mine said it like it was its idea. I'm going to go to the refrigerator and get an ice cream, Like I could see that I knew before it was the thought. Right? Go ahead, Tina.
It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever, not a great experience, but walked somewhere at night. When I lived in California, I would walk home. I didn't have a car back then. But I could always feel, it's like something would tell me when someone was behind me. Didn't matter. Like, I don't remember what that was, but that reminds me, key on to what you're saying. Like, I this feeling would come, like I would know something was letting me know someone's following you, someone's around the corner, someone's whatever, before I even seen it or whatever. And lo and behold, it was never wrong. If I remember correctly, it was never wrong.
Well, this knowing, again, we're saying this knowing is ourself. And what's happened is, we mistake mind for ourselves. So it's really important to notice that this knowing is here before mind. Like another great example, I think you could probably catch easily. I bet you have to go pee before mind says, I have to pee. Watch it. I bet you'll see, it. And then mind says it. Watch. See if you can catch that the knowing doesn't even need the mind. The knowing already knew the body had to pee. Right? And the mind says, I have to pee. Let's see, Barbara.
Hi, sorry, I can't go on camera.
That's okay.
But the pee example reminds me of at night. I know I have to pee at night. My mind doesn't tell me, oh, you have to get up now. It just knows. And I find that the more I just stay in the knowing, I find a lot of my day is spent in the knowing. I know who's on the phone, who's calling me before the phone rings, or I used to know when my kids, like when they were teens, when they were supposed to be home at a certain time, and maybe 10 minutes before they walked in the door, I would feel my heart just easing up because I knew that they would be walking in the door shortly. Or what I should serve for dinner, knowing that somebody had a really stressful day, perhaps. I had planned to make X, and then I thought, no, maybe I should make Y because it would just ease up the way that person was feeling. And the more I trusted that, the more it just happens, which road to drive on a particular day to avoid an accident or a detour, or what to say. when to keep my mouth shut. And it just becomes a greater trust in that knowing as opposed to thinking. And
Yes.
I remember you saying one time that you don't think as much or you don't remember thinking. And I
Yes.
find that when I look back at my day, the less I think, the easier my day is. The more I think, the more glitches I have throughout the day. So I just wanted to share that I'm grateful that for these shares so that I can integrate this learning. So I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Well, and one thing you just said that I just want to comment on real quick. You said the more I think, the more glitches I have during the day. Do you know why? Because thinking isn't knowing. That's why thinking isn't knowing.
That's right.
Yeah, so if we're following the thinking, we're going to have more glitches. Let's see, this says
Yeah.
Odzi has a hand up. So Odzi.
Regina, it's Audrey.
Oh, hi, Audrey. I thought it might be, but I wasn't sure.
I don't have a webcam up here, but I just wanted to say that the recent experience that I've been having is that I'll be just walking, and all of a sudden, the mind comes in and is like, what are you doing? Like, what are you going to get? And there's a bit of at first, the first time it happened, there was this sort of almost touching my breath because it was startling almost. Because obviously before that, there were no thoughts and the body was just walking. And then interrupt and, well, what are you doing? And the answer came, you don't need to know. And it was okay. Like, because after like the third time, it was okay. It was like, okay, this is okay. I don't need to, this brain doesn't need to know. I mean, it doesn't like that, but it's just a neat little experience. So I like this level of the game too. So thank you so much,
Thank
Regina.
you. Thank you. All right, so let's play this game this week. Let's see if we can catch knowing before mind, or mind kind of copying knowing, like, oh, I have to pee after knowing already knew that, right? And also notice that that knowing is I. It's not like some voice is telling you you have to pee. The knowing is I. And the knowing knows without mind's commentary. Let's just see if you can catch that. And then, you know, we'll look at what you guys discovered next week. All right. Everybody have a wonderful week. Bye.